Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for remaining with us. You're still watching Smart 24 TV, and we drive your business 24 hours, 7 days a week. Now, we are still talking the import versus export situation of Uganda, but we're still conniving with the fact that there's an imbalance between the government organizations and the traders themselves, people that are participating in the economy. And the argument for government has been, especially for raising the interest rates, that they need money, and inflation is still hovering all over the place, with the inflation currently standing at over and above 10%. And yet the goal or target of the central bank is 5%, according to them. And so the banks are raising interests because of the central bank rate increment, and this is affecting immensely how the private sector is actually operating, because most of it does depend on credit. Now, Mr. Jemba, before we went into the break, you were trying to explain something about the central bank rates increment and what this has, what effects it has on the traders. The government is saying they need money, and also they're saying that the current situation around the country is very many prices have risen for commodities, basically food, oil prices, which have gone down a little bit but still are above the average which we used to have. And they're saying the only way we can have a grip on inflation is actually reducing, rather increasing the central bank rate. Do you side with this fact?
Yeah, thank you very much. First and foremost, I think this summer to sit down and do some good research. To exactly find out what is happening in this country. What we call inflation is a shadow of inflation. Why do I say that? One, we have everything. We have everything on the market, but priced highly. And the buyers are not there. So inflation would have taken two tolls. Where there is demand, very high demand, then prices have to shoot. Or where there is lower demand, then the prices are down, but there are no buyers. In this time around, we are saying everything, we have it. You go to shops, you go to the market. The prices are not that high. There are no buyers. There is no demand at all. To Bank of Uganda, they are trying to control inflation. Of course, we agree with them. There is a need to control inflation. As things stand now, maybe that way we can see some stabilization. But when there is nothing like demand, then how much are you going to do that? Secondly, you move out and go to public servants. How much have government done? Whenever there is inflation, its effect must be felt by everyone. If the prices, say, of essential commodities like sugar, posho, and others are going up, which we have in saturation, but the prices still remain high. A teacher who has been earning 300 and is supposed to pay rent for the house where she or he stays. Nothing has been added since. That implies there is no disposable income for the public servants. None of them have seen an increment of their salaries. However, they are supposed to stay or work in the same economy like every one of us. And then we have seen taxes going up through valuation, through increased transportation and freight charges. But still, the prices are relatively low. We would have expected a shirt to go to 50,000 or even 70,000. But there are no buyers. So you try as much to be more creative in order to stay afloat in the market. Because once you increase the prices of the goods, then no one is going to buy them. And if the prices shoot up, then the inflation is going to go higher than what it is right now. So we're asking ourselves, where is the problem? And to me, this is my simple answer. One, a lot of money in hands of few individuals, especially government officials. Government expenditure, the appetite for government expenditure is always growing. I haven't seen the president or the presidential convoy reducing the numbers of vehicles he travels with them. We haven't had any proposal in Parliament to reduce the numbers of parliamentarians in the House. A country of 44 million people being represented by 529 MPs. Really, that is unattainable. Its effects into the economy is worse than anything else. This country deserves to have not more than 220 MPs, a maximum, but an average would have been of 150 MPs. Then you go for ministers. If you compare with Kenya, Kenya has 200 to 300 MPs. Kenya has over 55 ministers. Oh, cabinet and state. Uganda has 85. We have 45 districts. An average district in Uganda is having not more than 350,000 Ugandans. Kenya has 47 counties. 145 districts times 2, at certain instances 3 RDCs. All this is administrative cost. If this can all be controlled, we can see much of a reduction, not only in inflation, but even the performance of the economy will go up. That implies, if that can be put into consideration from MPs up to remerging of districts, we go down to 60 districts. That is commensurate with our economy. You will see nearly a third of our budget being reduced. We have a debt, both foreign and domestic, which stands approaching 90 trillions. We came out of COVID when the debt was around 62 trillions. As we talk, it's approaching 90 trillions. By the end of this year, it might hit a century. All this and its effect is for everyone out there to see. The performance of the economy, you cannot expect it to perform better when you're having all that. That coupled with what she hinted on, the increased freight charges, the challenges of moving cargo, the delays in clearance on the side of both URA and UNBS. It takes, we are becoming donors. In fact, we are increasingly, not even becoming, we are increasingly becoming donors to other countries. A container or cargo in China, where we source from, if it's going to take UNBS 2 weeks to inspect, by implication, every passing day after the grace period, you are supposed to pay how much, Lillian?
About $100,
$150 to $200 per consignment, per cargo, per container. So we assume we have $1,000 times 200 times 150 being donated every day to China. While at the same time, our bilateral arrangement between China and Uganda, China will emphasize that if we are going to do a certain bridge, a certain infrastructure, a certain percentage of workers must come from China. That is repatriation of everything. The few resources that we have in the country is being repatriated back to China. Even when we source goods, still we donate to Chinese. Reasons? Because no one could care about building capacity of units. Can we have goods inspected on arrival? You go for taxes. Verification takes a week, 2 weeks. The challenges of consolidated cargo, which had earlier been sorted, is cropping back. It takes 2 weeks to 3 weeks, others 1 month. By implication, money that would have been utilized to pay rent, to pay other facilities, to pay utility, we are spending it in storage. At the end of the day, when the values come out by from URA, they will tell you an item that would have expected to pay say 5,000 shillings for taxes is going for 7,000 shillings plus the storage and other charges. So we are saying we need practical persons, we need practical officers in offices, someone who can appreciate and understand what Ugandans are going through. All this goes back squarely to the consumers. But who are the major consumers in this country? The ordinary person who does not earn $2 a day. And these are over 60%. The youth who have come out of universities and other higher institutions of learning without a job. 65 of every 100 youth who come out of higher institutions of learning and universities never get a job. They are not employed, but they are supposed to survive. They are supposed to meet some other obligations. So what are we saying? Like Lillian said, we went for parish model too early. We did it hastily. Like the youth fund. How have you prepared the beneficiaries? How did you prepare the youth before you give them the fund? Just find out how many of them are still in business and what they use the money for. You realize out of every 100, we don't have even 20% who are still surviving in business. You go for Mionga, you go for Intandikwa, and many duplications, a number of duplication of funds, all meaning the same thing, but not meeting the intended goals.
Yes.
Why? We are ill prepared. We always take our priorities wrongly. Can we try as much as possible to sit on a round table with all stakeholders represented? We think out of the block. We stop thinking the way we have been thinking. Incidentally, this is leading to the duplication of different institutional approaches to the same intended goal. And this has led today to next week, the president is traveling to Vietnam, trying to find out how many government officials are traveling with. Over 75% or 80% are government officials. But you intend to encourage private sector to benchmark what others are doing in Vietnam, in DR Congo. You are looking for markets for the private sector, majorly. You are moving with government officials. Earning per diem. The intention is earning per diem. We are saying kindly, we have a highly organized cargo consolidation association in this country, which has never been there before.
And the treasury.
We have the others, the agents, clearing agents and others. You have the business community, you have private sector. Can we have 50% coming from the private sector? 50% you can carry your people, the government officials, because we need some of them there, especially the PAs who are the implementers. Policy makers, not many of them. But if you can have private sector on board, you have the implementing agencies or the implementing authorities, and then a lot can be achieved.
Yes.
Short of that, we are going to keep crying about inflation, about a lot of things. What we need is building capacity of Ugandans, especially the common man, the ordinary person.
Yes.
How next discussion?
Yes, Mr. Jemba, I'll come back to you on that. But very briefly, back to you, Ms. Lillian. Mr. Jemba has talked very much about the lack of organization of priority of government, especially when it comes to government expenditure. And one of the things government came up with in order to promote exportation from Uganda was tightening the nut on taxation, especially of importers. And he mentioned, in the financial year 2020-2021, several taxes were introduced, especially on clothing and several other commodities that we import into Uganda to try and discourage people from buying those goods, rather, or making them more expensive. And in this view, government is saying they are going to collect more taxes, but also promote the Ugandan brand. Do you side with this fact? Do you think the best way for us to promote our exports is by actually tightening nuts on imports via taxation?
Yes and no. And also there's that conception that government introduced taxes. It modified them. It increased them. The taxes were already there,
okay.
But they increased them to a level of discouraging importation. So this was done in good faith for the economy. Of course, when you increase taxes, importation taxes, you are naturally going to discourage importation of goods. And hopefully, you will encourage exportation. But the two do not quickly match. Increasing taxes does not quickly result into an increase in export. Those two are two different things. The best that an increment or modification in tax is going to achieve is discouragement of importation. But it does not naturally improve the export position. The export position can only be improved when government and other stakeholders focus on the problems and the issues preventing it from working. And those issues are not even many. They are simply two. The biggest being infrastructure. And when we talk about the infrastructure problem, we are basically talking about logistics. We are saying that, okay, what is the infrastructure that's supposed to support export business in Uganda? And that infrastructure is one, markets. Two, it is the network, the chain flow network, which is supported by logistics. So you have increased taxes, thank you very much. We are not going to import the tomato sauce anymore. We have our tomatoes. We need to make tomato sauce, and it is going to be too much for the country. We need it to go out. How is it going out? The tomatoes are already there. Somebody said that the issue that Uganda is currently having, why exports are not working adequately, or why it is not developing, is because we lack the product. Everything in Uganda to date is a viable product. Maybe it needs value addition.
Do you know we are importing onions from Tanzania?
Which is a shame.
Yes.
And there is a reason why. Because the other governments have done a very good job, including China, of developing infrastructure in form of market. Create market on the other end, and how things get there.
But we are trying to construct the standard gauge railway. We've tried to put up some roads.
It was a beautiful budget that was raised, and Uganda turned up with the highest budget on that particular construction of the SGR. Till today, I'm asking myself, Uganda, small as it is, how do you need more money than Kenya
Definitely.
to construct a railway? So that one, our people who are responsible for that need to answer where all that money was supposed to be going. That sends us back to what we've been discussing with Mr. Jemba, that government's choice of expenditure is questionable. What is the intention? Is the intention to simply dish out money even where it is not effectively needed, or to promote trade. If you're going to promote trade and you want to reverse the import-trade balance, then you should focus on the trade of exportation. How? Identify the problems. We have very good problem and issue identifiers in Uganda. We can tell you 1,000 problems on something. Task us to solve the problem. Say the next person should solve that problem. And it is happening in all the authorities. URS says, okay, so we've discouraged importation by increasing taxes. So the next sector should solve the problem of export. They do their part and they leave the rest to the next person, and things remain hanging.
There's no coherence in the way.
There is no coherence. That is why in the beginning I said we need a better coalition, unit, assembly, or forum whereby all these individual sectors and authorities and associations come together. Government should stop sitting alone with its policymakers. They should engage the traders, and not only through PSFU, because even PSFU is largely not in touch with what's happening in the grassroots. They should engage the transporters, they should engage the actual traders, they should engage the farmers. We should all sit on a round table, discuss the issue, and formulate workable solutions. Because the issues are not many. Now currently the government is in a market identification phase. They are going place to place, activating markets. Something that
been to Turkey, been to now Vietnam, like.
So what happens when you activate the market there?
Definitely.
They are saying, okay, no problem, fine, bring your coffee, bring your bananas, bring your avocado, bring everything, bring your Brussels sprouts.
A minute to chip in. UK is saying you can export as much as possible free of taxes on entry. The same happened with AGOA. What do we show?
So, like he has highlighted, all these markets are welcome to our products. But the issue still lies in Uganda. The issue is not across the border. The issue is within Uganda. The process of moving products, the one component that is supposed to facilitate export trade is logistics. It has been ignored, it has been underrated, it has not been formally brought on the table to discuss how to better this trade balance. They have left them there, like taxi conductors. They want us to implement whatever they've decided. Okay, fine, the market is there now, we need to move. But the cost of moving the goods is completely too high to make a profit for the person who is exporting. So what happens? The market is there, the exporter is there, the exporter/supplier is there, but the cost of transportation is unfavorable. It's not practical for them. Moving things from Europe to Uganda is $2.5 per kilo. Moving things from Uganda across the continent is almost $8 per kilo. Why? So this money that you're shoving down suppliers and exporters, giving them money to probably enhance their export business, I think should be channeled into the logistical chain. Improve the logistical chain, bring that cost down. People want to export, and in fact we should ignore Europe. We should ignore those continental countries when it comes to export. Africa is sufficient alone. Central African Republic, people are starving. They do not have food. Food is rotting in Nakasero. But how do we move there? How do we move the merchandise there? I used to wonder why the government and the president chose to make a road in Congo, but it's clear. He was dealing with an issue of infrastructure.
Yes.
But the cost comes back. If right now what we are working with is majorly air cargo, it is too expensive to facilitate export. It makes our export products very expensive when they reach wherever they are reaching their destination. What is being done about it? Nothing. Uganda Air Cargo is saying, government, pay us the money we demand you. then you do what? What is government doing? Pushing money to farmers and parish model. So right now they are trying to create a credit fund for export. But how will this export go wherever it's going if infrastructure of logistics, air and road is not worked upon? How will this export be successful if the market on the other side has not been secured? The government is very excited about foreign markets, but the foreign markets come with very high standards. Exporting something to Europe and America is like passing through a needle's hole. The level of standard they need is not practical for the products coming from Africa.
Sure.
From Uganda specifically, how are you going to get the bananas to look the same or measure the same height? Even that means you're increasing the cost of farming. You want everything to be grown in a greenhouse to control the environment and control the output. How many local farmers can? But Ethiopia, Somalia, Eritrea, Chad, Central African Republic, Liberia, Congo near here, they don't care whether the banana is, whether one of the bananas on the bunch is longer than the other, as long as it was grown correctly, it passes the agricultural tests and standards. We have UNBS and all these other authorities who are measuring standard. Let's focus on the regional markets, African regional markets, and let us develop the infrastructure that is going there. But this can only be done if we work together. For as long as the policymakers rotate their chairs in their SC and draft policies and dream of problems, we are the implementers. The business community is the one supposed to implement. The business community also envelopes farmers because these farmers are also businessmen in their right nature. So you're designing policies and you're leaving out the farmer and the businessman. Then you come and say, now export to Thailand. Export what, where, through where, and at what cost?
Thank you very much, Ms. Lillian. We have to take another quick break and get to return. We want to talk about the concept of value addition. You talked about us having, a trade area here in Uganda, and we want to see that we can export to CRC, maybe Central African Republic, South Sudan, and so on. But then the value addition, and also companies here in Uganda, due to the Bubu, kind of initiative that was brought by government, we're saying buy Uganda, build Uganda. But we've seen Chinese companies, in the names of Ugandans, take advantage of these opportunities and start companies here, and before we know it, they're taking capital back to China. So we want also to talk about that, how we can have a participation of Ugandans here. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still talking about the import and export industry in Uganda and how we can promote the same. I'm talking with Miss Lillian, who is representing Cargo Consolidators Association, and Mr. Jemba, who is representing Kasita. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Smart 24, driving business.